the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
It's Jamal Bryant with AVNation, talking with Rob Tomias, the CEO of HDMI LA. Welcome, sir.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you guys have got a new standard coming out, HDMI 2.1. And if you were an integrator or you're somebody who's putting these systems in, and then you are tasked with transporting HDMI signals back and forth for either, obviously point to point, but also for multiple rooms or multiple matrix systems, you've got to make sure that you understand what's going on here and what some of the capabilities are, but also what the regulations are to transport some of these figures or these images. So Rob, let's start with some of the new feature sets that are coming out with 2.1.
HDMI 2.1 was announced 3 years ago, but it's taken this long for products to embrace the features. The top of the line feature is 8K. So it has really pushed the bandwidth from 18 gigabits a second to 48 gigabits per second. And so that's very important to understand because that's a significant jump in bandwidth, in resolutions, and other capabilities. That has required the design and spec for a new cable. So be on the lookout for ultra high speed HDMI cables. They are required to be certified. That means they need to be tested at an authorized testing center, and they need to have the ultra high speed anti-counterfeit label. So look for the label, and that will ensure that you're getting a quality tested cable.
So I want to drill down on a couple of things you said first. First of all, is the certified process. So the dealers understand, and also honestly, quite frankly, so end users understand, what's the process to get specifically a cable certified?
So a manufacturer will take a candidate cable, send it to an HDMI forum authorized test center, where it is then required to go through a series of tests. So the HDMI forum has defined a series of tests for these cables. It'll be put through a rigorous testing process. And if it's able to pass all those tests, it is then certified as passing. And then it is eligible to apply these anti-counterfeit labels.
All right, and that actually goes back to the anti-counterfeit label part. When you talk about anti-counterfeit, what measures can HDMI LA take, but also what can the dealers do to help you guys kind of safeguard the integrity of the system?
Oh, that's a very good point there. So we do look out for cables that are claiming they're ultra high speed certified. We go after them, but also dealers can alert us as they see some suspected cables on the marketplace. But also they should ask their suppliers, show proof of testing. I don't see your anti-counterfeit label. Well, why don't you have that? Show me your testing certificate. So, it'll help them because they're going to want to ensure high quality cable goes in the installation, because the last thing you want is a truck roll because you're not able to get a picture on the screen.
All right, now let's talk about drill into the 8K, and you mentioned that the new cable, because we're looking at 40 gigs per second. When we start talking about the distribution, then at that point, what are you talking with your members about? Well, obviously, there are several manufacturers as well as content creators that are members of HDMI LA, but also the folks that are putting these systems in. When it comes to the new distribution model and what we're going to be looking at coming up in the next 2 to 3 years, when we start pushing 8K, not just point to point, but also, as we mentioned in the forerun up to this, in a matrix or a distributed model.
And so there are other technologies that convert HDMI to other formats, and those systems are usually tested at the HDMI portion. and those, so you have the switching matrix in the HDMI domain. So there's a lot of manufacturers that are upgrading from HDMI 2 to HDMI 2.1 for 48 gig. Also, there's active optical cables are going to be very important as we go to these higher speeds, because higher speeds mean shorter lengths for passive cables. So you have active copper cables, you have active optical cables to give you those longer distances. And so you'll see the emergence of these switching matrix, both in the HDMI domain and some of these other technologies that convert, that can carry it over like Ethernet cabling.
Yeah. When we look at this, Rob, we start talking about, the further pushing of resolutions as well as more information. As an organization, as a group, what do you guys look at when it comes to the next generation, right? Today we're talking about 2.1. I'm not going to ask you to give up any secrets or necessarily, do anything that would violate anything. But when you guys look at the next generation of HDMI, what is it, some of the things that you guys are considering or just, watching happen in technology in general?
Well, so first of all, right now the emergence of gaming, it's very exciting this year. We have the console platforms, Microsoft, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, but also the PC gaming platforms and GPUs from NVIDIA and AMD. They're all pushing 8K, 4K 120, VRR, variable refresh rate, auto low latency mode. So those things are coming to market right now. And that has been a major driver of features in HDMI. And we see that continuing because they're actively involved. There's a group called the HDMI Forum that develops these specifications. And so it's an industry group that contains all the major CE manufacturers that makes TVs and set-top boxes and ultra-high, Blu-ray systems. We have the PC groups, we have the console gaming groups, we have the chip manufacturers, PC manufacturers, and they all get together and work on the next generation specs. And so as different features evolve in these industries, they get applied to the spec. And they're constantly having to look about 5 years ahead, because it takes a while to write these specifications, write the compliance test specifications, and release them. So they're looking ahead. So if you read the industry news and you see things going on, 8K is just starting to gain traction, and we're like 6 years ago when 4K was just starting to roll out, but it will accelerate. And so then the industry looks at what's next. And so you're starting to hear some rumblings around 16K. So we'll see how the panel manufacturers push their manufacturing processes forward, since they're the ones that have been driven the last two generations, 4K and 8K displays.
Well, is that kind of what we're looking at here is kind of the display manufacturers and that dance they do with content creators?
Yes, around the early HD era, they were moving in lockstep, and came out with the 720 1080p HD content was there very quickly. 4K, there was a bigger lag. The display manufacturers were leading the charge, and 8K, definitely the display manufacturers are leading the charge. And here, rather than seeing traditional movie TV content with 8K, we're seeing the gaming platforms. They're the early leaders in generating 8K and 4K 120 content.
One thing that, Rob, before we let you get out of here, is as we're talking with integrators and folks here that are putting in those systems, when you start talking about some of the certified cables and the ones that we're looking at to kind of eliminate some of the piracy that is certainly possible in technology today, one of the areas that they have to deal with, and that's talking with their customers and relaying not just the information, but also selling them on the idea of upgrading your cables, but also making sure that those are certified. what are areas and ways that you can help those dealers, the integrators and the technologists that are going into not just, Fortune 500 companies, but also into people's homes saying, hey, look, we're upgrading your system to an 8K capable system. However, we have to upgrade your cables, and here's why, right? We're not trying to upsell you anything, but these are the steps and these are the reasons why. What are you guys able to kind of either some sort of assets, some sort of links, ways that you can help those dealers kind of sell the idea of maintaining the integrity of the system?
So we have our HDMI website, hdmi.org, where we have a number of resources you can look at to get information on HDMI 2.1. You can get also great information on the ultra high speed cable certification program. And so I think those are good resources to educate and also come up with ideas on how to communicate that to your customers. And it is going to be very important to have cables that are rated and tested for 8K. So, you may put in an 8K panel and you may put in some other 8K sources, but initially it may only be 4K content flowing. Well, your high-speed cables that you'd installed before are probably sufficient for that. But as soon as you move to 4K 120, 8K, those cables are likely to cause a blank screen. So, you're going to want to, if somebody's already upgrading with an 8K panel and the distribution system, cables are very important to ensure that it's all going to work once the higher performance content flows in that system.
I want you to hit on something and kind of repeat it a little bit. You also not just mentioned the fact that 8K, once that type of signal starts flowing, but also the 4K 120. And let's step back for a second on that, because it goes back to something you already talked about, and that's the gaming aspects. Yes, I am of a certain age, and you are as well, based on our gray hair. That when we were still starting to play video games, it required a little dongle that you plugged into the UHF port, and it was 8-bit, not 8K. So talk about yes, it might be 4K content, but that refresh cycle, right? That bumping it up to 120 is going to take up the capabilities of your current cabling.
So if you go from 4K 60 to 4K 120, you're doubling the bandwidth. Mm-hmm. And so that moves us into the ultra high speed cable there. So, the exciting gaming features are going to be the 4K 120, the variable rate refresh, auto low latency mode, and dynamic HDR. That is really going to significantly enhance the gaming performance, plus the color space. So that these new game platforms really are pushing the forefront of performance. And thus, you're going to need upgrade your TV. Ensure it is a 4K 120 panel, but also check the port. That is HDMI 2.1, and it is capable of these higher performance and these other features. So it's different TVs support different features of HDMI. The features of HDMI are all optional, but some TVs are very game focused and support all those features. And so you can read the reviews these days, and there's a lot, especially around people reviewing which TVs are the best for the new game platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're also looking at which ones are best for streaming, which ones are best for, obviously still physical media that is still in play as well. Rob, as we wrap up here, what's the thing that you're most excited about the capabilities of 2.1 for HDMI?
Well, we talked a lot about the gaming features, and I'm very excited about that, as well as 8K. One I didn't touch on yet is enhanced audio return channels. So in addition, we always focus on the visual, but audio is very important to the experience, not only the gaming experience, but the home entertainment experience. And enhanced audio return channel, or ER, enables systems, TVs, to pass back over HDMI the latest and greatest audio formats like Dolby Atmos, DTS, Dolby True HD. So it really enhances the audio experience as well.
All right, very good. Rob Tobias from HDMI LA. Thank you, sir. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or HDMI LA to find out the most and the most up-to-date information about HDMI and HDMI 2.1, how do they do that?
Go to their website, hdmi.org. You can find all the information there, and you can find contacts, AVNations.
All right, Rob Tobias from HDMI LA.